and welcome to the program. I'm Sophie Scott. Doctors have found a link between motor neurone disease and other debilitating conditions such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and they've also discovered a connection with proteins in the brain.
Come here. Come on.
3 years ago, Simon Eldridge was fit and healthy, but after experiencing a range of unusual symptoms, he was diagnosed with motor neurone disease. Now he's doing all he can to raise awareness and boost research into the devastating condition.
I'm not holding any great hope it'll be in time for me, but maybe for future sufferers.
Scientists at Northwestern University in Chicago have been investigating what causes motor neurone disease. It's a brain condition that affects muscle activity such as speaking, walking and breathing. Scientists say neurons in the brain have proteins that need to be recycled several times a day. They think what happens in patients with motor neurone disease is that there's a problem with the recycling of these proteins.
If the rubbish builds up in these neurons, then the cell is going to get sick and die, and that's what happens in motor neurone disease.
Some doctors believe the same process that causes motor neurone disease may also be responsible for Alzheimer's and frontal lobe dementia. Scientists say if they can stop the debris, reverse the build-up and normalise the brain's systems, they would have an answer to the terrible diseases.
I've been doing it for 30 years. I think this is the most optimistic time. This is the most hopeful time for this disease and related disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
They're now testing a range of compounds in the hope of finding a treatment that could reverse the process, something the Eldridges say can't come soon enough. It's meant to be an all-weather surface where children can play safely, but could artificial turf be doing more harm than good? The Greens are calling for a ban on its use in schools and playgrounds until more is known about the long-term health effects. Ursula Malone reports.
It's hard wearing and it doesn't need watering, but is it safe? Philip Kanjian started worrying when his children came home covered in small pieces of sticky black rubber.
Their shirts, their school shirts, pants are full of these black granules, the crumb rubber.
The crumb rubber is used as a base for artificial turf installed at this oval.
I know that when they come home from school they have black under their shoes and sometimes they say it goes into their mouth.
The local council says it hired a renowned specialist who concluded it was safe.
The ability of the human body to absorb toxic materials from this crumb rubber is believed to be small, but of course children, because they are growing so rapidly, are potentially at greater risk.
Gavin Edwards successfully campaigned against a plan to install artificial turf at his local reserve. He says while some of the materials used are carcinogenic, for adults the dangers are minimal.
You wouldn't expect a sports person to grab handfuls and maybe put in their mouth. You can't say the same for children.
The government hasn't assessed the health impacts of this stuff, yet kids are going home with little bits of unknown chemicals on their bodies and on their clothes.
On a day like today, you can really feel the heat rising off this surface. And the concern is that as these rubber granules heat up, they could be releasing toxic fumes into the air.
There are reports that have come out that show higher levels of toxic chemicals above the ground. This stuff emits toxic chemicals on really hot days.
The Greens are now calling for tougher controls on imported materials.
Gastric band surgery, or lap banding as it's better known, is a controversial tool in the battle against obesity. But as obesity rates continue to rise in Australia, the surgery is being touted as a cost-effective way to prevent diabetes and other complications associated with obesity. Now, a leading expert in the field is calling on children's hospitals to offer the operation to teenagers. Sarah Jench reports.
Basically, if I was 148 kilos, there was no chance I would have been able to learn to skydive.
At just 16 years old, Drew Hullen weighed almost 150 kilograms.
I tried losing the weight every other way possible for about 5 years. Dietitians, diets, all the pills, everything you could think of we tried, and it just wasn't working.
Mr Hullen was one of 50 teenagers who took part in a gastric band trial between 2005 and 2008. Since the surgery, he's lost 66 kilos.
I can now actually work. I'm an electrician. I'm a qualified electrician. I jump out of planes for fun. I jump off, I bungee jump. I do everything outdoors now. I would never have been able to do any of that if I was still morbidly obese.
This shows the band sitting at the very top of the stomach. This shows food coming down and getting squeezed across that area. By squeezing just the right amount, by us adjusting it correctly, we generate a feeling of not being hungry.
Professor Paul O'Brien carried out Australia's first gastric band surgery in 1994. He also led the study into lap bands for adolescents and now wants to see the surgery made available to other teenagers.
In a trial setting, we offer the surgery to people at no cost to them. But currently, for adolescents, there's very limited access in Australia. The major hospitals looking after kids haven't embraced this approach, even though it's been published in the best journals, the data are very solid. But there's a background prejudice within our community thinking, no, it's their problem, let them solve it.
The Royal Australasian College of Physicians says a morbidly obese teenager must be 15 or over, must have seen a psychologist, and must have exhausted all other options to lose weight before they can qualify for gastric band surgery. But even if someone under 18 does fit that criteria, Australia's public children's hospitals do not offer the procedure.
They would be saying, well, you wait till you're an adult, then go to an adult hospital. At an adult hospital, it can still be many years. It's just unfair. It's very good health care. It's probably the most powerful treatment we have in medicine today, to have people lose weight. Doesn't matter which way we get them to do it. If we can get people to lose weight, we change their lives.
If the risk of type 2 diabetes and the conventional strategies for treatment don't work, then clearly bariatric surgery needs to be considered. I think the government has to consider increased funding for bariatric surgery, given the obesity epidemic that we've seen in adults and now seeing in children. But it should not be seen as a public health strategy to control the obesity epidemic.
The federal government is spending $41 million on its latest anti-obesity campaign, Measure Up, which focuses on healthy eating and exercise. And if weight gain continues at current levels, by 2020, 80% of all Australian adults and a third of all children will be overweight or obese. And public hospitals around Australia, like Melbourne's Royal Children's and Sydney's Westmead, offer weight management clinics for obese kids. But they don't offer lap band surgery.
We have talked to people at the children's hospitals. We've offered to help them, to work with them, to teach them, to even play a part in their care. So far, that hasn't been taken up.
7:30 contacted Australia's two largest public children's hospitals, the Westmead in Sydney and the Royal Children's in Melbourne. Both said no one was available to respond to questions about why the surgery isn't offered to teenagers. The New South Wales Health Department did release a statement saying bariatric surgery may be appropriate for a select group of adolescents, but that given the age and size of such patients, they should be considered in the context of an adult facility with a specialist weight management unit and expertise in adolescent care.
One has to consider that there are complications from bariatric surgery, and you wouldn't think lightly about either banding or gastric bypass surgery in an adolescent.
Almost a third of the adolescents involved in the original trial needed follow-up surgery during the study period. Drew Hullen was one of them.
Probably about a year into the trial, the lap band actually slipped, and acid was going into my lungs when I was sleeping, causing aspirated pneumonia. So they ripped out the lap band and put a new one in.
While some forms of bariatric surgery, like stomach stapling, are permanent, lap bands are reversible. But having one fitted involves a major commitment if it is to prove successful.
In terms of compliance, it's not difficult to overrule the band, so to speak, by vitamising Mars bars or drinking soft drinks, etc. So this is a clear risk, and this is why one needs a disciplined adolescent in the first place.
You can't eat steak and that sort of things in large quantities. But at the end of the day, I can work, I can walk, I can run, I can jump. My life's so much better for having it done than not being able to eat a little bit of steak on a weekend.
Their health is better, their length of life is better, their quality of life is better. It puzzles me that people emotionally argue against it.
As the country's population ages, there's an increasing desire for elderly people to stay in their own homes. But the federal opposition has accused the government of failing to cater to the trend. It says demand for at-home care is outstripping supply, while some nursing home beds remain empty. Kylie Rollins reports.
It's more than just making refreshing drinks. A carer helps Alison Wheatley in her Hobart home for about 6 hours a week. Apart from personal care, the 83-year-old receives assistance with shopping, housework and social outings.
Means a lot. You've got your privacy and you've got your friends and family around. They've got the garden to look at.
A recent Productivity Commission report says an increasing number of elderly Australians want to live in their house rather than go to an aged care home. But some providers say the federal government isn't reacting fast enough to the new trend. One operator says it has a surplus of licences for nursing beds. An attempt to swap them for at-home care funding failed.
We had over 140 people come back to us and say, we want an aged care package. We went back to the government, but again they've rejected that application to convert those licences.
Announcing money for a new aged care home, the Community Services Minister said the need for more traditional nursing home beds can't be questioned.
We know that the number of people aged over 80 will double in the next 20 years, so we need to make sure that the facilities are available.
But the government isn't planning a response to the productivity report until later in the year.
All this government seems to be doing is talking a lot and not actually taking action.
For now, people like Alison Wheatley can count themselves among the lucky ones with at-home care.
That report from Kylie Rollins. And that's all for this edition of the Health Quarter. Thanks for joining us. If you've got any story ideas or feedback, please get in touch on Facebook. Search for the Health Quarter page and click like if you want to be kept up to date. And I'll see you next time.